cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, yeah, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin's the lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to the PSGL YouTube channel for tonight's social race where we head to the dusty western frontier of Austin, Texas. It is of course the circuit of the Americas, and in a state of varying cultures comes a track with varying outcomes, but one thing I know for certain tonight is that this is going to be a good one. My name is Dan Field and I'm being joined by Nathan Richards. Nathan, how are you doing tonight?
No, I'm doing great. Bit of a change up to what we should have had with the car situation, but yeah, it's going to be a great one at Kota as well, another great track. Yeah, so I'm quite excited. And Jan, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic at the minute. I'm happy to be back on PSGL screens. It's been quite a while since I've streamed for PSGL, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. But you've just touched on a little issue that we've got going on this evening, and it is of course about the cars. So it's recently been found out that unfortunately tyre wear differs from car to car despite the settings being equal, giving some drivers unfair handicaps, and drivers in the Ferraris and the Haas and the Alfa Romeos, they're unfortunately experiencing more tyre wear than drivers in the Red Bulls and the Alfa Tauris. So it is unfortunate that tonight we're going to have to use the multiplayer cars, but I think the big implication from this, Nathan, is that of course round number 2 and round number 1, round number 2, of course, Bahrain and Kota are being voided. The results of those have been deleted, essentially, and it's uncertain when Season 34 is going to continue to resume. It is just, of course, waiting for a patch to come out, so it's very unfortunate that we're suffering this.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's something that we didn't want. So I think there's many issues that have been resolved, but I'd say this is a big one that has come through this game. And then also, apparently, there was similar issues last game, but it was never really picked up upon. So yeah, it seems... Yeah, it's not good, but I suppose you have to rock and roll with it. We've got the F1 World multiplayer car, which, at least we've got something to use. But yeah, it's unfortunate because it should be, from what we saw at the start, the game looked really, really good. But, well, it seems that they decided to obviously not improve on everything. But yeah, hopefully they'll bring it a patch soon, and I can't see why they won't, because, they're going to really have a big drop in players if they don't sort it.
Yeah, and of course... I think with PSGL and the season, being halted, it's definitely going to hurt the publicity of F1. So it is definitely in their best interest to get a patch out as soon as possible. So if you are wondering why we are using the F1 World car tonight, that is exactly why. I do believe it is set to equal, because I know you can upgrade your own car and stuff. And I've seen a TM at Marduk video as well, where just that the maxed out F1 World car is absolutely OP, but we're going to hope that it is set to equal this evening. In terms of the grid, it is a fantastic lineup of a lot of guys that I think we're going to be seeing in F1 and in F2 and F3 in this coming PSGL season. Got a good few names that I am very familiar with. However, a lot of guys, not sure who they are at all.
Yeah, I'm looking through quite a few recognised from F2 last season, but Ian Van Noonen, I haven't seen him much. I believe he came in from PS. Benny Fabos, I haven't seen him much before. And yeah, there's a couple other names, but it's great to see, obviously Wilson Hall and Skid Row have come over from Xbox. So yeah, at least it's great to see more people coming over onto the PC platform for this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of names like I can bring us over actually to the game scene, so you can see all of the names on this list. You've got Floris Vyers, Max Wiesel, who are two names I think are going to be right at the top of F2, and if some guys in F1 don't make their appearances, I think these two, they're going to definitely be in the hot seat for getting their place. And in terms of some other names, Ben Charbonnier, very experienced league racer. He's been a part of the Ferrari system as well, I do believe, in the last season of F1 Esports. Duncan Hoffland, a name I'm very familiar with, going all the way back to his PlayStation days. Ryan Jacobs, I'm very familiar with. There's a lot of guys who I do know, but there are a lot of unknowns, which I'm very excited to see how they get on.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm quite excited to see all these different players. Obviously, some of them as well are from multiple different levels of racing. I noticed, I think Benny and a couple others might have raced in F5, F4 last season. And obviously, you got Floris and, Louis and Bent who've all raced in F2 and F1. So I think it's nice as well to see how the spread is on this game, with lots of different teams taking part. Hopefully, it's closer from what I've seen as well. The racing is a lot closer. Obviously, ignoring the tyre situation, the cars seem to be a lot more equal. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how this grid forms up after qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, let's talk about the track we are headed to today. It is, of course, the Circuit of the Americas. And I'd say out of Herman Tilke's designs, he's got a lot of F1 circuits, but this is definitely one of his best ones. This is a fantastic circuit, taking inspiration from all sorts of different tracks, and there's a lot of defining features about it. And what do you think about this one here?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite circuits. I think it's really underrated. A lot of people hate on it a lot for IRL F1 and with esports, but I think, obviously in F1 we've seen some great races between like Max and Lewis last year and even in the past. But I think on esports as well, obviously we had that race, I think it was last season, where Jarno come all the way from near the back all the way to the front. Then we've had the esports season when we had 4 people fighting for the win on the last lap through the final corners. I think it's a track that produces really great racing, because I think in general it's quite a wide track and there's lots of places for you to go side by side. So yeah, I think it's very underrated and people hate on it way too much. For me, I'll probably say it's probably one of my favourite tracks.
I do find it quite difficult to drive, but that is because I simply have no talent whatsoever. So I know that all of these guys, they're going to be much better at taking to this circuit than I personally am. But yeah, it is very fun to watch. It always makes for an incredible F1 race when you're commentating on it. I remember season 27 or something, PlayStation F2. That was a fantastic Grand Prix. Same with season 28 F1. I'm pretty sure that was a good one too. It always constantly delivers on results, and I think with the social race tonight, it is certainly going to do much of the same.
Yeah, I think as well you've got lots of different types of corners. Obviously, you've got the hairpin down in towards the start of that backstraight, I think turn 10. Then you've got the hairpin down at turn 11, or the 90-degree corner. You've got the horrible set to 3, which is quite a weird set. It's quite off camber, so you've got to take lots of apexes. Then you've got the high-speed section of set to 1. So there's lots of different variables around this track. So there's lots of strengths and weaknesses that you can find within the drivers, and some of them you might see them absolutely blitz set to 2, but then set to 1 they could be really, really slow compared to some other drivers on the grid. So I think that will also be something we can see the difference with setups in these different sectors of the track. Because obviously, if you've got a car that's built generally for sector 3, you're not going to be really the quickest unless you're clear in sector 1. So
yeah, absolutely. It is such a variable circuit where you can't really get the setup absolutely perfect, and so it is a very exciting track to commentate on. Just trying to see, we've only got 19 drivers in the lobby at the moment. I'm not too sure what's really going on with us getting this one underway. I might just check the Discord, but it is 19 actually, so we are done. Hopefully hopefully we're going to get ready up soon. We've only got the short qualifying format, of course different to what we see in F1. 18 minutes of qualifying, and Nathan, is there any names on this list that really do stand out to you as quick qualifiers?
Thrice Wires, I think he's one I'm really interested in seeing, and also Max Lee. So I think those two are probably the ones that will fight for that pole position mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm gonna throw a bone to Duncan Hoffland. I think he's definitely can be really good in qualifying. He's also got some fantastic race pace. I'm hoping that Louis Welch has a good one today. That is just a little bit of personal bias. Of course, our lobby host this evening. But yeah, I hope everyone on this grid has a good performance this evening. You might be able to hear from the beeping noise in your ears that we are about to get ready for qualifying to be underway. As I previously stated, 18 minutes of this short qualifying session, and it is going to determine who is starting on pole position. We'll get ready to head into qualifying after a quick word from our sponsors at GT Omega. And welcome back trackside here for the PSGL social race this evening at Austin, Texas. It is of course the circuit of the Americas. We're about to get ready for qualifying to get underway. And if you are just joining us and you see everyone is using their multiplayer cars, that is due to an issue on going with tyre wear on equal performance. So we're using this as a precaution. And I'll tell you one thing, it is going to be incredibly difficult, Nathan, to work out who's actually going out for a lap.
It will. So I'm going to spend the whole time just trying to scroll through the grid, but we have got one car out on track, and I believe got it to be correct. It is Sven Schumacher, who's running a pretty nice livery, to be fair, a purpley blue and white. So yeah, it's nice to see if any of these drivers have actually changed their liveries. I think some of them have probably kept them the same, but some drivers are probably going away from that default setting if they've been messing around with the F1 World Car outside of practice and league racing. So yeah, at least we'll at least be able to see some new cars on the track, I suppose. But yeah, it is going to be weird not seeing the Red Bulls, Mercedes, Ferraris all out. Yeah, it's obviously something a bit different every now and then, and try and make the best of a bad situation.
Hey, what this livery sort of reminds me of BMW Sauber back in 2009 was their last season in F1. It's a really nice livery. It's just clean and simple. I want to see what everyone else has opted for, but I have no idea who is who. I think with that, with this here, we're on board with Bogdan Moldovan. That is the default livery, so we're going to see quite a few guys with a car like that. I think Benny Fabos and Max Wiesel also have that equipped as well. Actually, Max Wiesel, oh no, someone behind him's using the Audi livery.
I forgot who that is. And I noticed, obviously, Duncan's not using the normal car because he's got a pink car. So it's probably the only car that looks completely different to the others. Most of them have got black, white, or yellow one. But yeah, this is the only car that's it's fully pink. Actually, you just see it coming out the pits. So yeah, that's actually really like that livery with all the different colours of pink, all the different shades.
I think it's quite nice. So I think it's a very nice looking livery, and it's certainly going to stand out amongst the yellow and blacks of this grid. But we'll have a look at Sven Schumacher as he heads through the final corner. He's going to begin his lap. Shouldn't experience all that much traffic at the minute as he heads up towards turn number 1. You can brake quite a bit later than you think around here, given that it is uphill. Very hard to actually lock up through here, kiss the apex on the inside line, then let the car run out wide through the second part of the corner. Now approaching the S's section, something the drivers used to fear, but in these modern F1 cars you can take it with a lot more aggression, a lot more speed through the corners. That is expertly handled by Sven Schumacher. 24.911 through the first sector from him as he heads now towards the downhill approach of turn number 10 and 11. Of course, this would be the DRS detection point. If you're within a second of the car in front, come race time, you'll get to utilise it down this massive straight. And it is certainly an incredible overtaking opportunity down in towards turn number 12. But so far, Nathan, this lap for Sven Schumacher looks quite decent.
It does, and he's got to be careful because there's quite a few cars ahead who are been getting themselves held up in traffic as they're starting their laps. As he comes through that second set for 101.791, he goes purple, but this is the only one so far to set a middle sector as he comes through now into this tricky section. You've got to be very careful with the apex, so you need to go very late on some of them through this very difficult section. Then you have the double right-handers at turns 17 and 18. Very easy to mess it up here if you take the very, very bad line. Just going a little bit too wide, it can spin you around because the grip can be quite low at the start of the session. Then you come down into the final corner at turn 20, where we'll round off his first final lap. What will it be for Sven Schumacher? It will be a 31.708. And I've noticed Legend Rosenberg is actually running the McLaren's Triple Crown livery.
Oh, so he is. That was. I think that's pretty cool. How has he done that? Are you allowed to do that on the multiplayer car? I didn't know you could do that.
You have to win it from a challenge or something you can do in F1 World.
I see. Well, Legend Rosenberg's unfortunately invalidated on this attempt, so he's not going to get a time on the board. I think Yanni Turpkov is using that Audi livery that you can use as Max Wiesel goes to the top of the order with a 1 minute 31.5. Turpkov goes into P3 ahead of Sergio Sabrino with a 1 minute 31.723 as these laps continue to come out. I'm going to try and find runners who are actually on a push lap. I'm looking at Leo Lund at the minute in the final sector, donning a very nice purple and black livery as more cars come across the line. Ryan Jacobs has gone P4. Ian Van Unen is P6. Where's Lund going to go? He goes into 5th position, slotting right behind Ryan Jacobs as the laps continue to come out quick and fast. Flores veers to the top of the order.
Yeah, and Skidder actually goes quicker than that by 50 thousandths of a second, so he's had a really great lap. And obviously coming over from Xbox, he was probably, I think, one of the quickest over on that platform as Duncan Hoffman goes into 3rd with 31.5. There's still a few more laps to come through. Wilson Hall currently down in 19th. He's coming through as Louis Welch there goes just ahead of Duncan Hoffman by 10 thousandths of a second. And Wilson Hall pops himself into the top 6. So we've still got a few more laps coming through. Bogdan Moldovan, he's invalidated. Aljat is invalidated as well. Benson Bakonyi's coming down, I believe, just through that first sector now, so he's obviously started off late. No, he's actually let off from his lap, so must have invalidated on the previous one. And Legend Rosenberg has let off his lap as well. He's invalidated as well. So yeah, there's been quite a few drivers who've made invalidations, which at the start of the session isn't ideal. Obviously, there's only one qualifying session, 18 minutes long. You don't want to be making mistakes on any of your laps, especially as well in the fact you're going to waste yourself a set of soft tyres.
So I think that brings us to the end of our first run of laps. It is, hope I'm saying this name right, it's Seither to the top of the order with a very appropriate star-spangled car for the place we're in, a very patriotic part of the country as well. We're in Austin, Texas, and he's got the lovely USA flag completely spread across his car's livery. He's only 300 ahead of Flores Viers at the minute, and he's only about 100 clear of Louis Welch. I'll give you the gap to the leader. You can see the difference in the times at the minute. The top 5 separated by less than a tenth of a second, so it's looking very close thus far in qualifying with just about 10 minutes left to go here today. So far, it's looking like it's going to be a very close qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with the top 4 separated by less than a tenth of a second, so I'm really excited to see what it can bring. And obviously, looking through Floris, I'm not surprised he's up at 2nd. I thought Max would be a little bit higher than he is, but obviously, the likes of Louis and Duncan doing a great job, and obviously pole man so far. I believe he's American. He's currently taking pole in his home country, so that'd be something nice as well. Wilson Hall, I believe he was on Xbox. He's sitting up in P6, and we have likes of Tripkov in the top 8, which is very nice to see him there. He wasn't up on pace too much on the previous game, and yeah, I'm surprised to see no laps from the likes of Mirko, Bentz and Legend. You'd thought really they'd be near that top spot as well, so it'll be interesting to see what these second laps for many drivers can bring, but also for some it's going to be their first time laps as well, so maybe likes 14th day might not want to push too hard on these next laps so they don't invalidate. Surely you just want to get yourself a banker on the board, and maybe depending on how their run plan goes, they could get 1 or 2 more laps out afterwards.
Yeah, I think some of these guys like Legend Rosenberg, Ben Chavo-Konyi, I actually think Soriano didn't come out on circuit for his first out lap, but Chavo-Konyi and Rosenberg, they certainly did invalidate on their runs, which I can't blame them too much. It is very difficult around this circuit to keep it within the limits, especially in that first sector where you're trying to carry as much speed as possible, but it's so easy to just turn in a little bit too early and then invalidate your laps. We've got Andres Lopez out on his first out lap. He also didn't come out of the pit lane donning the Max Verstappen livery. I think that comes possibly with the deluxe edition of the game. I'm not too sure. I didn't buy it myself, but I haven't seen this livery, so it is very cool that at least we do have some branding on the grid. We've got the McLaren special livery, and then this Max Verstappen sort of Red Bull hybrid livery. It looks very nice on that car, I do say so myself.
It does, and I think it's not a surprise that the first actual spots that we see without any car, without any of the actual cars, is a Max Verstappen one. The Red Bull, obviously, Red Bull always wanted to get their faces where they can, and yeah, it's from the deluxe edition. You also get a Max Verstappen suit and helmet, which I believe Andres is using as well as heads out. Turn 20 to begin his his first flying lap. For many, it will be their second as he heads up towards turn 1. Obviously, if it's uphill, it's very difficult to see, but generally, as long as you can get that braking point right, you should be generally fine as you come through that corner. Then you come through the S's section, very difficult through here. You want to take that perfect line, but you've also got to be careful you don't go a little bit too wide, because 1 inch to the left or the right could get your lap invalidated. As he comes through there, very nice and flowy for Andres as he comes up towards the end of that first sector. It's a purple in that first sector. That's very nice for him at the start of this lap as he now heads down in towards turns 10 and 11. Obviously at turn 11 it's very easy just to lock up into this corner, but Andres, he goes through, takes it very nicely, just hits the apex on the inside as he rides it to the curb on the exit. With the DRS now heading down this back straight in towards turn 12, it's going to be very careful here not to lock up as well, as it's very easy to lock up and go a bit too deep. And in general, it's very easy just to cut this inside curb and get yourself a track limit invalidation. He comes through and hops the curb there, and I think there's issues with that curb because he completely jumped over it and it didn't invalidate his time. So that's an interesting one indeed as he comes through this final sector. Obviously, you're going to take some late apexes through here as he comes through in towards turn 16. Then you have the double right-handers at turns 17 and 18, which you want to keep yourself nice to the inside and just use the curb a bit for rotation as you pull yourself around there. Then you come into the penultimate corner at turn 19, down to 5th, back on the power really early, ride the curb as you exit, and then into turn 20, just ride the curb on the exit as well like you did at turn 19, and he comes up towards the line. It will be P13 for Andres.
Yep, struggling there, Andres Lopez down in 13th position. I think all of the visual sort of stimulus around him of all the other cars getting in the way was they didn't really impede him, so to say, but they definitely did play on his mind as that lap went on. Let's see if we can find someone coming towards the end of their lap. It is so difficult to actually work out who is coming to the end of a run. I think Legend Rosenberg, no, he's just begun on a lap. We'll watch Mirko, it's Bence Zabrokonyi coming up towards the line. He's in the final sector at the minute. He's just coming into it now. 1 minute 1.781 as Sergio Sobrino goes to the top of the order by 0.5 of a second ahead of Skizzer. Hopefully I've got it right that time, but we've got some more guys completing their runs. We've got a white car that might be Sven Schumacher through the final few corners as we continue towards Bent Zabrokonyi through now turn number 19. Very tricky on traction on the exit due to the dip down. Exit speed is everything here. Flores Veers goes to the top of the order with 600ths of a buffer. Sergio Sobrino, Bent Zabrokonyi nets his time on the board in 10th position. We'll watch Duncan Hoffman. Unfortunately, he's made a mistake on his lap somewhere. He's coming into the pits. What about Bogdan Moldovan out of the final corner now in his F1 World Car off the exit of the final corner, and he's only, unfortunately, P14 for him. Who can we find towards the end of their laps now? I do believe Mirko Soriano's come to the line, so it's going to be Legend Rosenberg somewhere along the lap as Skizzer once again goes to the top of the order. It's so hard to actually work out who is in the final few sectors of their lap. I think Aljat has unfortunately invalidated on his attempt. Wilson Hall is in the final sector, up by almost 1/10 of a second. He's got a few cars just in front of him. We'll keep an eye out on who is going to be jumping towards the top of the order as Hall 3/10 off the top spot for the time being. As he comes towards the line, he's lost time in that third sector and he's down by 1/1000 of a second. And I do believe that is all the laps completed for their second runs.
Yeah, it is. Mirko, I think, invalidated in the final corner, which is a big shame for him. He was on a pretty decent lap as well. I think he went quickest in that purple in the middle sector. But looking at all these cars with the Sailing River with the black and the yellow, it just reminds me of watching the Red Bull liveries in Formula 2. There's just that many. You're trying to figure out who's who as they all come through around the track. And Benny Fabos, he's on an out lap, so he's on a different run plan. You know, a bit out of sync compared to many drivers. And Bogdan, I'm very surprised to see him down in 14th. Same with Legend Rosenberg to be down in 12th as we have the few final laps to come through. I think the top 5, well, the top 6, I think we can say, is pretty much the top 6 everyone expected. You know, Skidder, Flores, Sergio, Max, Louis, and Duncan, probably the quickest drivers in the lobby, and so far they're proving that as they take out the top 6. And we look a bit further, then obviously Aljat, I believe he raced in F5 last season. I believe he's one of the Discord moderators actually for PSGL. I think his name's Elliot, his other name. Well, that's the name I'll see anyway on Discord. So he's obviously not going to be at top pace compared to some of the drivers. Mirko, obviously he's also one you expect to see in that in the top 5. Because last night he took part in that, I think it was a Twitch Rivals event, and he did win it ahead of Yana, because I think Yana missed the first couple out due to PSGL, which obviously now got voided, so he wasted a couple hours of time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think, you know what, I'm going to go bold and I'm going to say Mirko Soriano for pole.
Okay, that's very interesting that you say Mirko Soriano's yet to get a lap on the board. He did come out for his first run just in the last flurry of laps, but he wasn't able to get time out there, so I wonder if he's struggling around this circuit. At the moment, it is very close at the top, not as close as it was previously. It seems like Skither really does have the best of everyone else thus far, although Flores Veers, he is keeping him humble. He's only 400ths of a second off the top spot. The rest of the grid sort of falling behind a little bit. Sergio Sobrino 10th off the top, Max Wiesel 10th and a half, but we'll see how the final laps do go on, as we do have just about 3 minutes left to go in this session. Only 2 cars out on circuit for the time being, one of them being Benny Fabos, who we're watching on his attempt at the minute, and he's up by 0.2 of a second. That is going to net him only around about, what, top 14 for this run, unless he can find an improvement in the final sector. The other car out on track, who we're definitely going to have to watch once he starts his lap, Floris Viers. Coming out very bold, very early from him, as you can see all the cars exiting the pit lane behind Benny Fabos, but now we'll see what he can do as he heads through the final 2 corners, where you've got to get the best exit speed down this long straight, open up the DRS, and it is P14 for Benny Fabos. He was able to find a little bit more time in that, actually no, he lost time in that 3rd sector, so it's not looking good for him on his laps.
No, and I think now he's got that much out of sync, he can't set another lap now, because he's got to get back around the track, back into pits and back out, which is not enough time at 2 minutes. So, yeah, that's pretty much Benny's lap time over here. For qualifying, he's on the 31.9. I believe most drivers should be able to beat that. So, Benny's probably looking at sitting on the back row of the grid. There we are, and retires, I believe, on track. So, hopefully that causes no issues for anyone at the moment. And Duncan Hoffland, surprising to see him retire out so early. He retired, I believe, about 7 minutes into the session after he'd set his first lap, messed up on his second, and then yeah, he's retired with a 31.5, which will probably still be decent, you know, top 14, maybe top 15, but yeah, I think we should definitely see Duncan higher than that. But I suppose he might have thought, right, we'll do 1 lap, and then we'll just go back in, retire, and just see where we can make it. You know, obviously nothing, you don't get points from this or anything, it's just, you know, a social race, which with these different cars, let's hope people don't get mixed up with each other. And obviously with the pit boxes as well, that could provide some entertaining, you know, it could provide some entertainment when it comes to pit stops, because some people might not realise who should be in the pits, you know, at the right time, and everyone getting mixed up with the pit boxes and holding each other up. So, yeah, that could also be quite interesting. But yeah, Floris Viers now starting his first lap, final lap. He's coming through in towards that 1st sector.
See what he can do then as he heads through this sector, similar to what we see at Suzuka or at Maggots and Beckett in Silverstone, taken expertly by the former Haas F1 Esports driver, up by almost 0.2 of a second in the 1st sector, where arguably you can find the most time. It is very difficult to get right there, but Floris Viers has done that expertly. Now downhill run in towards turn number 11, when you want to prioritise the exit speed through here, because you're going to take to this long straight, little bit of a stretch down in towards the DRS run, open that wide open, and then we'll see the speed as he reaches the braking zone of the corner, peaking around about 199, 201 miles per hour for Floris Viers at the braking zone. Get that stop to 60 miles per hour, then immediately back on the power. He's lost a little bit of time, unfortunately, in Sector 2. He was purple in Sector 1, but he has definitely dropped the ball a little bit on this lap. Can he recover it in the 3rd part of the lap? We'll have to wait and see. For the time being, this is good enough for provisional pole for him, but we'll see what he can do as now in towards the final few corners. The clock has struck 0, no new laps can be started, and Floris Viers, oh dear, sent into a spin. He's invalidated his lap, and that is his qualifying over and done with. Unfortunate for him. Ben Sabroconi will be then the first to take the checkered flag, and he goes up into P4. He's got Sergio Sabrino just behind him, unfortunately invalid on this attempt as well. Sven Schumacher invalidated on his lap also, trying to find who is actually on a run in the final few sectors. Skither has also invalidated on his lap. Let's look at Max Wiesel in the 3rd sector, up by 0.2 of a second. This will be good enough for pole position if he can get it around the final few corners. I do believe he's got Louis Welch just in front of him. Off the exit now, the final corner. There's a car off in front of him, but Wiesel to the line. He goes to the top of the order. Someone was in a spin just in front of him. That might have been, it wasn't Louis Welch, I think it was Bogdan Moldovan. We'll watch the Englishman as he heads now through turns number 16, 17 and 18. The triple right-hander in the 3rd sector, now down in towards 5th gear for turn number 19. He also has invalidated. A lot of guys coming under fire along this circuit, messing up when the time is crucial, and unfortunately Louis Welch invalid on that attempt. Mirko Soriano will be the last one to come across the line. Aljat was also invalid on his attempt. Soriano wide out of the final corner. He's going to lose time. He's going to go into neutral. He does not want to start at the top of the order. He wants to be plumb last. So it's going to be P18 in this one, due to the fact that Aljat never actually got a lap on the board, but Soriano, I think he's setting himself a challenge.
Yeah, well, also looking through that final corner, it looks like he went wide, so I believe he tried to invalidate it. Then he come back onto track and that time didn't invalidate. So he probably slowed down just to start from that. So yeah, me say he'd be on pole. Well, I'm going to say he could have done it if he, set the lap, but obviously let off at the end. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he can from P18. But I think it's a pretty close grid, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Max Wiesel at the top of the order, starting on pole position, ahead of Skither by just half a tenth of a second. Flores Vias within that 1/10 window as well in P3. Bit of a gap to Sergio Sobrino behind, and then Zabro Konyi rounding out the top 5. Louis Welch and Duncan Hoffland in 6th and 7th. 8th and 9th is Wilson Hall and Ryan Jacobs. Rounding out the top 10 is Legend Rosenberg. The rest of the grid is as follows: Sven Schumacher, Jarno Trupkov, Leo Lund, Benny Fabos, Bogdan Moldovan, Ian Van Unen, Andres Lopez, Mirko Soriano, and Aljat. I believe I got all the names on there, but hopefully once we get into the race, we'll be able to actually have a look at all of the grids.
Yeah, and going into race, is there anyone you expect to take that win, or anyone you expect to take the lead to turn 1 at least?
Oh, I've got high hopes for. It is very hard actually, because this is a very close grid, and given that we actually don't know all the cars they're driving, I've forgotten the grid already, so I'm going to have to remind myself once we get into this one. But I think Max Wiesel has got some fantastic pace. He's on pole position, and I think he is going to be able to convert that into a win today. However, we've seen this pace, the pace of Skither heading into this session. He could definitely put up a fight. We're getting ready to head into the formation lap, and then we'll head into this race. And you did touch on one thing about the pit boxes being different. You can kind of get an idea of where everyone is by looking at the front wings lined up outside the garage. However, it is difficult, and we've actually got the race starting already. 5 red lights. We've not got a formation lap around here. I've just been able to turn it, but we are green here for the social race here in Texas, and it looks to be a good getaway from Max Wiesel. He's going to storm away from Skither in towards turn number 1, where Flores Vias is going to try and challenge towards the outside. A little bit of contact between the pair of them, and it's going to be Sergio Sobrino looking to the inside line, getting ahead. Oh, Flores Vias so close to contact between the pair of them, and now they're all looking to run wheel to wheel in the first sector. It's going to be very tricky through this part of the track. Is anyone going to go off? There's a car towards the back of the order. I believe that was Ryan Jacobs going off. Ben Jabberconny spun off, and he's into the wall. Flores Vias has a 5-second time penalty. The VSC, I do believe, has been deployed, but Max Wiesel with a perfect getaway. He's 2 seconds clear of Sergio Sobrino.
Yeah, that was an interesting start. Many people lost positions. I think Flores and Skither had an incident, along with Duncan as well, and Max just flew away. Sergio managed to time that perfectly and get himself through, and then I don't know what happened to Bence, but he must have made contact with someone. Could have been Jane, as he's sitting down in 18th now, and yeah, many people losing positions, but Mirko's gained 5 on that first, half a lap alone, so he's obviously doing a great job just to get it out of the way of all the chaos. But yeah, that was a very chaotic first lap, and yeah, the VSC is out, so no safety car, but there is just that, the VSC, and everyone just has to slow down. I think it's by 40% or 6% of their speed. So yeah, hopefully we'll get underway very shortly.
Yep, we didn't have time to look at the tyres that everyone has opted for, and if you're wondering why Skither was so slow off the start, he's on a set of the hard compound tyres, and without a formation lap, he's had no opportunity to actually get them up to optimal temperature. The top 4 all on a set of the medium tyres. Duncan Hoffland, Wilson Hall, you can expect them to have the better starts of everyone else. They've both gained 2 positions. That is due to the fact they're on a set of soft compound tyres. We are back green here in Kota. Max Wiesel off like a shot. He's already 1.7 seconds clear of everyone else, and I think Legend Rosenberg, Jarno Trupkov, they were definitely involved in an incident somewhere along the road. It might not have been with Ben Jabberconny, as Sven Schumacher gets by on Skither. Understandable that Skither's going to be losing all of these places on a set of the hard compound tyres. He's got to bide his time and stick with these guys as best as possible, because Nathan, he is going to phase into this race in just a few laps time.
He is, and I'm watching Soriano now coming through that the end of that first sector. He's right behind Benny and Andres, who took each other a little bit wide into turn 1, and it allowed Mirko to close in that little bit, but now he's going to try and get them. Hopefully down in towards turn 12, but Mirko's had a great start, obviously on the hard tyres, so he will be slower than these mediums and softs ahead. But to be fair, he's doing a great job just to keep with them, and he goes a little bit deep and he lets Ryan Jacobs through. Either that or he just went really, really deep into the corner, but Ryan just slid up the inside and got himself up into 13th on those soft tyres. And Bogdan Moldovan, he's on the mediums, he'll be looking to close in us at the top. We've got Wilson Hall there, passing Flores Wise down in towards turn 12, but obviously Flores on the mediums, he will be slower than Duncan and Wilson, who will probably get themselves up onto that. Well, Duncan could be looking to get himself onto that top spot, depending on how much he can gain on Max after he gets through on Louis and Sergio, because he's right on the back of Louis as well as we come through in towards turn 17. He's using a little bit of his battery as they come through. Then he'll surely be able to get past Louis, possibly down into turn 1, I think, as we come through in towards turn 19 and 20. And also that is, I believe, Sven Schumacher starting to gain on Floris, who's got a penalty. I believe that was at the start, wasn't it, at the 5 second. As we come through, 2/10 between Duncan and Louis, and Max there sets the fastest lap, and no, Duncan takes that. 35.137 as we head up now towards turn 1. Can Duncan going to move on Louis? I think he will, as we head down, brakes later, and he goes up the inside, gets himself up into P3.
Very nice move from Duncan Hoffland. I don't think Louis Welch wanted to fight that one all too hard. Duncan really is just utilising these soft tyres to the best of his abilities. Already up a number of places in this Grand Prix. Once he gets by on Sergio Sobrino, he's going to have a bit of a gap to Max Wiesel in front of him, so it might be smart for Hoffland to try and get some DRS off the back of the Verstappen livery donned Sergio Sobrino. It's going to be very difficult to work out who's actually racing what car in this one, and then try and catch up to Max Wiesel. See, off the exit of turn number 11, he's got the battery deployed and he is in the DRS range. He's going to be cruising on by, heading in towards the braking zone. Look to the inside line. Sobrino doesn't decide to defend. Sven Schumacher also with a very good start, getting by on Floris Vyers, utilising his softs to the best of his ability, and these soft tyres working very well for the moment. However, Nathan, we do know that advantage is not going to last long.
Yeah, and it's not worked out for Sergio at all, because obviously not having that DRS, it led Louis Welch to get himself up the inside as well at turn 12, so he's now put himself in a better position than Sergio. And it seems Wilson, I thought he'd be gaining more than he is. He's already 7/10 back, so you'd think really with these soft tyres he'd be right behind, but I believe, as you said, he did have a battle with Sven, so that could also be why he's seen a little bit further back than he should be. As we look further down the grid, I think Ryan Jacobs is just trying to hold on to that 1 second to Lopez as we come through, and Duncan Hoffland yet again taking the fastest lap of 35.132, which I think was very similar to the first fastest lap he took, wasn't it? As we come through down to turn 1, and Sven Schumacher looking to get a lot closer than to Wilson Hall. We have Lopez and overtaking, I believe that's Aljuk down at turn 1 as well, and they're going side by side through this section. They make contact, they make big contact, and that's Aljuk round then. He's reset to track, so that's really not worked out for him at all, and I think Andres just about got away with that without damage. We'll see soon if he did get any damage, but I don't think he did.
Yeah, we're lucky that Aljuk ghosted there, because he came right back onto the circuit in the path of some cars in front of him. I think it was Ryan Jacobs would have made contact with him. That would have ruined both of their races, and that have had big damage. Luckily for the ghosting system, we avoided a massive collision. However, I don't think Aljuk is going to be all too happy with that incident, as we look now to Sven Schumacher closing on Wilson Hall, who is struggling for pace at the minute, and Schumacher's going to go up the inside. That is now P5 for him. He's in the top 5. He's closing towards Sergio Sobrino. I think it is going to be optimal if he can get himself behind Duncan Hoffland, maybe try and go for an overtake and be that leading soft runner. And when it comes to the pit stops in this one, you really can't chance the car being in front. The car being in front being the person that you've been assigned the same grid box to. So you really do have to just overtake anyone when you're intending to pit. And I think these soft tyres, they're not going to be lasting too much longer. I give about 3 or 4 more laps until they're in.
Yeah, I think we could also see many people just pit early just for the sake of hopefully not having to share a pit box with someone, because for all we know it could be Louis and Sergio sharing the same pit box. So maybe one of them will think, right, we'll pit early just so we don't have to run that risk as we go down into turn 1. I think that's Floris sending a move on Wilson Hall, just sent it up the inside and got himself up, I think, as Wilson will try and fight back on those softer tyres as we come through, and I think Floris has got ahead. Yes, he had that, but that was a proper send up into turn 1 from Floris, and that worked out really well. But now we're going to see if Wilson can try and fight him back down towards turns 11 and 12, which I think he will. So obviously these soft tyres still having that advantage as Benny Fabos retired in the pit lane, so obviously not the race he would have wanted, as Ian Van Uyenen gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings on track limits as we now head down in towards turn 11. And Skidder's actually right on the back of Wilson. He's on the hard tyres, one of only 3 drivers that took the hards, and he's having a pretty decent start. Actually, he could have a good run on Wilson down in towards turn 12. I think he will. He's using the ERS, he's using the DRS and the advantage of the slipstream as we head down. I think that's also Floris getting ahead of Sven as we go down to turn 12, and that's Skidder on the outside. Can he get through? No, he sits behind. But Floris there getting himself right ahead of Sven. He's now going to close that gap to Sergio Sobrino.
As now Skidder looking towards the outside in the 3rd sector of Wilson Hall, trying everything he can to get by on his, I believe, fellow Xbox rival now looking towards the outside of turn number 15. It's not going to work out for him this time by, and the hard runner who's definitely going to have the advantage soon enough on the soft running Wilson Hall. He's going to want to get by as soon as possible so as to not lose touch with the likes of Flores Valles, Sergio Sobrino and Sven Schumacher in front of him. He'll have the DRS heading up towards turn number 1. We'll see what he can do then as he closes to the rear of Wilson Hall in front of him. Louis Welch getting closer, Duncan Hoffman as well, heading up towards the first few corners. Ian Van Unen with his time penalty. He is going to decide to retire in the pit lane. Skither can't get close enough to send a move up the inside in the first braking zone, and they'll stay as they are at the beginning of lap number 6. However, Louis Welch close to the rear of Duncan Hoffman. He's going to have the DRS. Those soft tyres beginning to die out, I think, for the Dutchman.
Yeah, talking about Skidder as well with those hard tyres, he's doing a really good job. He's really, really quick. He's right on the back of Wilson, who's on the softs. And also, keeping well up with the people on the medium. So, this strategy for Skidder is going to work out really, really well. Obviously, when he moves out to those softer tyre compounds at the end, he's going to have a really good advantage over these people who will be on the mediums and the hards as we come out of turn 11. He's got the DRS on the back of Wilson. Can he try and get him down into turn 12? Surely this time he can. He's on 50% battery. Wilson's on 3. So this is a really good chance now for Skidder to get himself an overtake. Obviously on the hard tyres, overtaking the softs now could either mean, 1, you're just a lot quicker in general, or 2, these soft tyres are really now starting to lose their advantages. We also see, I think, Mirko Soriano get through on Leo Lund as well, down towards turn 12, and he's also on the hards against the soft runner. So now with these soft tyres really now at the end of their ability, just being quick. Skidder's also right at the back of Sven Schumacher as they come through. He's 1.7 seconds back from Flores now. He's lost lots of time on this previous lap, and Skidder right all over the back of him as they come through in towards the final couple of corners. And Skidder now going to look for possibly down to turn 1. He's got the DRS, and Sven hasn't now. They come out the final corner, DRS, slipstream and ERS for Skidder now as we head up towards turn 1. Surely he'll just blitz past Sven Schumacher, which he does up the inside into turn 1, gets himself into P6.
Yep, easy enough for Skidder. He did do that potentially a lap later than he would have wanted, being stuck behind Wilson Hall, and for that he's paid the price. Now he's almost 2 seconds back from Flores Valles, but he has had some excellent pace around this circuit. So I think it won't be too long until he's within that 1 second window that he needs to get DRS on Flores Valles. We'll have a look at Louis Welch at the moment. He is still 4 tenths to the rear of Duncan Hoffland, who every lap that passes by is going to be feeling a lot worse on these tyres. Is now through turn number 11. Louis Welch practically pushing the Dutchman through the corner off the exit through here. He's going to have the DRS heading down and towards turn number 12. Duncan Hoffland, I think his valiant defence is unfortunately going to come to an end as Louis Welch looks towards the inside line at the braking zone. He's going to get ahead before he even reaches the corner, and Louis Welch now up into P2, 1.6 seconds to the rear of Max Wiesel, who's going to be trying to hunt him down as we continue lap number 7.
Yeah, and I'm bored now with back between P9, 10, 11. Well, it was P9, 10, and 11, but now it's just Bogdan and Andres as we come through. And Andres there just trying to get himself through on Bogdan, trying to take a different line to the car ahead to just try and slip up the inside of the outside, but just can't get anything done at the moment. He's also on the softs against the mediums, and it just seems that advantage just isn't there. So now it could be the time for the medium to the soft tyres to say, right, let's just get a set of hards on and just try and get ourselves now the end on those tyres, because they're really not working well. As we see, I believe Ryan and Leo pitting from the softs onto a set of hard tyres this lap as they are heading out the pit lane heading out of the pit lane for wait, no, they're not. They're coming out of the final couple of corners. My bad. I didn't notice that. I thought it was coming out of turn 1. No, because I was looking at the wrong car. Yeah, they're coming through to the final corner on their new tyres. Yeah, this is posing very difficult situation. We're trying to figure out who's in what car as Aljat retired in the pits.
Yeah, I think if we're going to use the F1 World cars for multiplayer, we're going to have to get drivers to set liveries for, have like certain colours and be exactly matching to their teammates, because this is just not going to work this way. We don't know who is driving what car at the minute. We've now got our 4th retirement of the day. Aljat retiring in the pit lane. He was one of the only drivers with an actually different livery to a lot of these guys, so it's going to create even more confusion as to who we are watching. But nevertheless, we continue on. We troop forward in this Grand Prix. It seems like on lap number 8 of 28, we're heading up towards 20 to go. Most drivers settling into a rhythm in this Grand Prix, as we're not seeing too many overtakes being done for the time being. I think now really is the time for the soft runners to come into the pit lane, strap on a set of the hards. That being said though, Duncan Hoffland doing a really good job of keeping with Louis Welch. He's still within that 1 second window that he needs for DRS, which is definitely going to be helping him in staying within reach of the car in front. Is he going to pit this time by? Not quite. He's going to stay out for at least one more lap in this one. We'll have a look at Sven Schumacher and Wilson Hall. They're also opting to do the same. What about the last soft run of Andres Lopez? They're all staying out on a set of the soft compound of tyres, and I wonder if they're trying to extend this stint as much as they can, try and go on the mediums towards the end of the race.
It could be possible, and to be fair, for the people in the DRS train, they're in a good position. If you're outside the DRS, you're going to struggle a lot. But if you're in, the likes of Duncan and Sven, you're in that 1 second. You're in a really good position just to be pulled along as you come through. Because realistically, you're not going to lose. Obviously Duncan's 6 tenths back. He's not going to lose 5 or 6 tenths in that final set to just yet. The tyres aren't that dead. So yeah, as long as he sticks behind Louis to a second, he should be pretty decent. I've just been able to extend it a few more laps. But one thing I recommended we could do is possibly for drivers that might be driving in Mercedes next season, put them in a car that's silver and blue or something like that, just so you can kind of correspond it with the actual car. Because unless this issue gets fixed with the tyres, this is just not going to work, is it? You're trying to figure out who, so you get one driver like, actually no, that's the person on the other side of the circuit. So yeah, it's not ideal. But to be fair, I think we're doing a pretty good job of just trying to figure out who's who.
Well, I think it's definitely a lot easier in the race than it is in qualifying. It was a pain trying to find who was actually coming towards the end of their lap, because the colours on the side as well are just so small. You can't you can't really tell who some of them are. And Sergio Sabrino and Andres Lopez, that dark blue is blending in towards that sort of greyish black that we have for the background, so you can't even see their colours at all. It is very difficult. Maybe we can get a change potentially to that. I think if PSGL and other leagues gain enough traction, that is definitely possible for that to happen. We'll have a look now at Mirko Soriano. There's a little bit of lag there. He's now ahead of Wilson Hall, because Wilson Hall's decided to bite the bullet and come into the pit lane. It's been 9 laps on a set of his soft compound tyres, and he feels that is enough. He's going to come into the pit lane, his pit box, right towards the end of the straight, and he's going to strap on a set of the hard compound tyres. So good. It's some pretty good fortune for anyone who is sharing his pit box, that he's coming to the pit now. You're pretty much free to do whatever you want. However, we don't know who that is as Wilson Hall comes out of the pit lane. He's been undercut by Leo Lund, but I do believe he is going to be able to stay ahead of Ryan Jacobs in P13. However, he's got 3 lap fresh hard compound tyres, and he'll definitely have the advantage towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and I just saw someone say in the chat, so there's no tyre wear issue with the multiplayer car. No, because, well, it's not very easy to say as soon as the issue has arose, but these are actually equal cars. They are the exact same. There's no difference between them at all, so that's why they've worked fine. If there is a difference, I'm sure we would have had it pointed out by some of the drivers in the lobby, but at the moment it seems all is good. So yeah, these cars are a good alternative, but it's still not an ideal one. As we come through now into the final set, on one board is Sven Schumacher, who's trying to gain on the back of the skidder, who's lost a lot of time actually to Flores. He's 2 seconds back, so obviously he's on those hard tyres, but it just seems like he's either let off or he's just lost lots of pace. He was cruising right on the back of Flores easily. He was looking like one of the quickest on the track, but now he's just starting to slowly drop off a little bit of time per lap. So obviously, we could just be letting off, I suppose, trying to manage to take these hards as long as they can to pit onto softs at the end, unless he goes onto mediums. If you pit onto mediums, you're pitting around lap 15, lap 16. You want to go to soft, you want to pit around lap 20. So we'll see soon enough what type of strategy he's going to take as we head out of turn 1 with Sven and Skidder as they come through towards that first set. Duncan Hoffland sitting right behind Louis Welch, still in these tyres going in very well for Duncan. He's still sitting right behind, and he's got 10 lap old softs as Legend Rosenberg gets a 3-second time penalty for warnings, but he's sitting all the way down in 15th, so he's really not had a good race. And I believe he's pitted actually onto some softs and a couple of laps in, because he's only on 9 lap old tyres along with Tripkov.
Yeah, he was one of the 2 that got damaged really early on, so without the safety car so far in this race, he's been well off the pace of everyone else. He's just been kind of having his own little scrap with Jarno Turkov for the most of this Grand Prix. Speaking of Duncan Hoffman, at the minute he's getting close to the rear of Louis Welch and almost in a sort of window to go for an overtake. I think he's quite happy to sit behind Louis Welch, and that is of course following in the wheel tracks of everyone else. You're going to get the slipstream and the DRS. It also gives you the opportunity to conserve some resources, one of those being the tyres, so he's happy to sit in P3 at the minute. However, Louis Welch not really making any gains on Max Wiesel, so maybe as soon as they pit, Duncan Hoffland is going to try and just blaze on by, past Louis Welch as soon as possible. He's not going to pit on lap number 11. He's really taking these soft compounder tyres to the extreme. We'll have a look at the ERS situations at the moment as Sven Schumacher decided to come into the pit lane. In terms of ERS, Max Wiesel with 44%, Louis Welch with 54%, and Duncan Hoffland with 33%. Sergio Sabrino 50%. Floris Vyers struggling with the battery. I think he's had to push to keep up with the top four, who seemingly just in a class of their own at the minute.
Yeah, and I think Duncan, he's surely going to be going for the mediums. There's no way you're going to go that far on the tyres to go into the hards. It wouldn't make sense. You would have pitted a few laps earlier. As actually, no, Sven has gone into the medium, so maybe this is the right time to pit onto some medium tyres. You have to take those 16 laps, I believe that would be, from now, which is quite a long stretch, but I'm sure they'll be able to do them because Max and Louis seem really comfortable on their tyres, and they're already 11 laps in, and Skidder and Mirko, maybe they could pit onto the softs around lap 19, maybe a little bit earlier than we thought, as we come down in towards turn 12. And really, you're at the point where no moves seem to get made because everyone's just trying to settle in, just keep up with each other and just pull each other along for DRS. As I say that, we have an overtake. It's Bogdan fighting with Mirko Soriano down into turn 12. Bogdan gets himself ahead of the, I suppose you can say the McLaren, because it is a McLaren livery as we head through, as Wilson Hall also getting a move on Leo Lund. So it seems as soon as there's no overtakes, everyone thought, you know what, we'll go for an overtake, as he now puts himself, Wilson, into P9 ahead of Leo, and Ryan Jacobs also. Haven't spoke about him much in this race. He's just sitting right behind us. Duncan Hoffland decides now it's the time to pit.
I wonder, I think he can go on the mediums towards the end of the race because, of course, you're lighter on fuel as you continue on this run, as it is indeed the yellow wall medium tyres for Duncan Hoffland. But as you are lighter on fuel, you're putting less wear into the tyres, so the fact that these mediums have done 12 laps here, they can definitely do from the beginning of the race to the end where the cars are really heavy, as Duncan Hoffland does not care about the he does not care about the exit line, and he just decides to cut over onto the circuit. I mean, I guess there's no real need to follow it. This race isn't for any points, but it's a little bit, it's like save scumming on Football Manager or something there.
Well, if John Evans was in the chat, he'd definitely get reported, that's for sure. As we come through with Leo Lund trying to get a move back on Wilson Hall. They're coming down through this first sector now, out of the first sector actually, down in towards turn 11. Obviously, he's just within that DRS point. He's 9/10 max, so he's got to be careful he doesn't drop outside that DRS, which is obviously 1 second of time as they come out of turn 11, and he's within that 1 second, but actually dropping outside of it on the exit, so he seems now he's lacking a bit of pace, as we also have a move. That is Bogdan on the hards against Andres on the brand new mediums as we head down in towards turn 12. The side by side, I think Andres has got it to work. Yes, he has.
And Sven Schumacher's got by on Ryan Jacobs on his fresh medium tyres, understandably so, as he is now on the rear of Leo Lund. I'm expecting a lunge in towards turn number 15. I was right about that when he gets up the inside. Sven Schumacher now into P9. I want anyone in the chat to just let me know if this is Schumacher underscore something 1.
It's not.
On play. Is it not? Oh,
no. Yeah, he's been on PC for a while.
Oh, unfortunate. That's a name I've not heard in a long time, so I was just wondering if the Schumacher connection was there at all. But nevertheless, he's on the rear of Wilson Hall as, oh dear, Louis Welch with a 3-second time penalty. That's a pretty big one, a pretty big implication at the front of the order, and I think now he's going to really struggle to win this race with that penalty to his name. And he is also losing Floris Vyers as well, getting a time penalty, and it is in that first sector. It really does catch you out. That's very unfortunate for both Louis Welch and Floris Vyers, and Vyers now 8-second penalty to his name.
Yeah, and obviously Floris can serve that well. He probably will serve that 5 seconds in the pit lane, so that will drop him behind the likes of Skidder and Mirko. So yeah, it's not going well at all for Floris with these penalties, and the same with Louis now. He's really got a big gap to Max. He'll probably get if Sergio can stick with this, he'll get overtaken by Sergio, Skidder as well. If he can just about get himself a bit closer, he can also try and take that position from Lou. But at the moment, Max Wiesel, it's going perfectly well. He's not really under much pressure from anyone behind. He can just relax and just get the car to the end of the race. We're halfway through now, lap 14 out of 28. We'll have the pit stops on these mediums shortly, and I believe, it depends actually. You could pit now and go to the hards, but you could pit a bit later, maybe 4 or 5 laps later, and then go into soft. So I think we'll see some drivers go for the soft, some go for the hards, but that could also depend on tyre wear. Luckily, there is no issues with tyre wear on these multiplayer cars, so it could just also any issues with tyre wear will be down to setup and driving style.
I think at this point, if you're still on the mediums that you started on in this race, you're going to stretch them as long as possible and go onto the softs. There's no point doing less than half of the race on a set of the hard compound of tyres, because they're just not maximising the pace out of the mediums and the hards. It's not really an optimal strategy. So I do believe that all of these guys, they're going to be stretching it as far as possible to get onto the softs, and the likes of Skither and Soriano, they are definitely going to be able to do that. It's definitely going to be touch and go though for the likes of Wiesel, Welch, Sabrino and Vyers. A lot of W's in the top of the order. I didn't notice that until now, but I think that the softs is the optimal route here. It is just about who is able to manage these tyres until that window is open. We're thinking of the likes of Hofland and Sven Schumacher, who stretch the softs as long as possible. I think if they were to pit now, they probably could get towards the end on a set of the softs, but obviously I want to squeeze as much life out of these mediums as they can, so to not burn up the softs too early and be at a disadvantage when everyone else comes into the pits.
Well, do you happen to know how long the pit stop time is here? Because at the moment, Duncan Hofland is only 13 seconds from the lead, so at the moment he's looking to easily take that P1 because normally it's about 20 seconds, isn't it? If that's the case, it's going to take the lead by about 5 seconds. Same with Sven, he's also going to put himself into P2.
Yeah, Duncan Hofland is cutting this lead down every single corner. Max Wiesel doesn't seem to cop on yet, and no one is coming to the pit lane. They're going to have a big gap to Duncan Hofland once he takes the lead of the race, but of course being on the soft compound tyres against the worn mediums that will be on that pink livery, the pink liveried car, he is definitely going to struggle when he is up against them. However, we'll just have to wait and see how this race plays out. So we've got Leo Lund, interestingly enough, coming into the pit lane. He's got a 5-second time penalty, as that is unfortunately our 5th retirement of the day. Only 14 drivers remain in this Grand Prix. No safety cars so far in this race. We've had as Yanni Tupkov comes into the pit lane as well. We've had the VSC been deployed, but so far it's been a pretty clean race aside from all of these retirements.
Yeah, Bogdan and Andres fought into turn 1, and Bogdan went literally sideways coming out of turn 1. He hit the curb on the exit, and his comments someone thought, yeah, he's round, but he caught it. So stellar job there from Bogdan to catch a car that's about 90 degrees sideways. He did a really good job, as he's also now in... Oh, there's actually a little train for him, isn't there? You've got Bogdan, Andres and Ryan all together. You've got older mediums, new mediums and new hards. So this will be an interesting battle to see what strategy works out well as we come down in towards turn 12. Andres there with the better tyres gets through on Ryan. Can Bogdan also get a move? I think he will. Can he also get through on Andres Lopez into turn 12? I think he might get both the he sits back, so he wants to have that DRS advantage instead of trap position advantage, which I think is a very good game there from Bogdan. Obviously on the newer hards, he will take these easily to the end, whereas Ryan might struggle a little bit once he gets to the end of that race. He's still got 12 laps to go, and his tyres are already 9 laps worn.
Looking at Duncan Hofland at the minute, he's right on the rear of Mirko Soriano, who's refusing to come into the pit lane. We've seen Max Wiesel and Sergio Sabrino come into the box to fit on their fresh set of, I believe, soft compound tyres. Duncan Hofland now a full pit stop ahead of Mirko Soriano. He's going to be able to get on by heading in towards turn number 1, and he is up into P4, and this is the net lead. He is only 6 seconds off the back of Louis Welch as Ryan Jacobs retires in the pit lane. The strategy has not worked out for him whatsoever. He just pitted way too early. He could have stretched these tyres and gone onto a set of the softs. The same goes for Leo London. Unfortunately, that's been their undoing in this race. I'd expect the likes of Bogdan Moldovan and Wilson Hall also really to struggle towards the end of this race, given to the fact that they didn't commit to this strategy. They unfortunately, I guess, chickened out or something on that, decided to come to the pit lane when the tyres got a little bit too worn, and it's been the undoing of them, as now everyone seemingly at the front of the order burning up the battery as much as possible. And I think that that is a very strong indicator that we are going to see some pit stops at the end of this lap for the top 3. Skither all over the back of Floris Vyers, given that he does have the better tyres heading in towards turn number 15. He could have gone for the lunge, but he has decided to stick back. We've got yellow flags in sector 1. That is, I do believe, Ryan Jacobs, Bogdan Moldovan and Andres Lopez having a scrap for 10th position, but Lopez does have that penalty. Sergio Sabrino also involved in that. on his fresh set of the soft compounder tyres. Louis Welch, Flores Vise, Skither all coming to the pit lane, and that's going to allow for Duncan Hoffman to lead this race as Louis Welch, 5-second penalty, sped in the pit lane there.
Yeah, I think the thing is now, I think Duncan's got this in the bag because he's 9 seconds ahead of Max Wiesel. Yes, Max is on the soft tyres, but surely you're not going to gain 8 seconds in 10 laps and get through as well, because he's also going to have some traffic, I believe, as well to get through. So I think this has worked really, really well for Duncan, and no strategy could have worked better, I think, at this point. Obviously, Mirko's still got to pit. Sven, he might be under pressure from, well, I think he will be under pressure from Max Wiesel. Then you've got Wilson Hall, he's obviously in this mix with these used hard tyres, so he'll come under a bit of a downfall when he gets caught up by the likes of Louis, Skither and Flores, who are all on their new sets of tyres. And Skither has gone on to mediums, which I think is an odd strategy. I think he would have pitted to softs by now, only 10 laps to go, and that is a legend. Rosenberg retiring in the pits. He's not had a good race at all, has he? Unfortunately for him. But yeah, Mirko's obviously going to try and, well, I suppose he's going to hope for a safety car now, isn't he? Obviously, on those old hards, he's going to have to pick the soft either way, but he'll drop back down to the, I think, pretty much 11th at the rate of the field if he picks now. So safety car will be looking his way as that is Max Wiesel there, getting through on Sven Schumacher down in towards turn 12. He's now 6.7 to Duncan Hoffman, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe this could work.
I think it's definitely doable for Max Wiesel. I don't think the likes of Louis Welch and Flores Vise, they've got too much traffic in front of them really to make this strategy work. Both the Moldovan, Andres Lopez, Wilson Hall, they're all going to be getting in the way, and you can actually see that. I do believe that Louis Welch is struggling to get by on Andres Lopez, and I think it's just the fact that Lopez has some pretty decent pace on his mediums. They're not worn whatsoever, and yeah, he's definitely having a good showing this Grand Prix, starting way down the order. He's now running in at P8. The fastest lap of the race comes out for Max Wiesel. He's the quickest man on track. He's closing to the back of Mirko Soriano, who's yet to pit in this Grand Prix, suffering relatively no traffic whatsoever as Louis Welch dives up the inside of Andres Lopez and Bogdan Moldovan. He gets that move done. He's up into P7. But with that penalty to his name, it's certainly going to send him down the order. I do apologise for the sound issues that we are experiencing as well. I'm just going to try and pause, see if that fixes it. I don't know if it has done at this point. Lap number 19 though, 10 to go in this Grand Prix. Duncan Hoffman leading by just about 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm really enjoying about this game so far is the fact of the variety of strategy. I think this race we've had about 6 or 7 different strategies going on. Obviously, you know, with the soft hard, hard soft, medium hard. So I think it's a great thing to see. And as Max will get from Mirko Soriano down to turn 12. I think, you know, if they can sort out the major bugs and the issue with the tyre wear, I think, you know, esports itself will be a great season because obviously, you know, you'll be wanting to change the setups to help. Obviously, you know, setups do make a bit of a difference with tyre wear. So some people want to, you know, make their setups a bit more defensive, more aggressive, just to, you know, to see what strategy you enjoy. Some drivers, you know, there's that psychological thing where some of them are just better at the hard tyres, even if there's, you know, they're just better at driving on the hard. Some of them are better at driving on the mediums and some on the soft. So I think this game strategies can cater for that. Obviously, people who might have enjoyed the softs last game, you know, realistically you could not use them, you know, unless that one exception, because of the fact the medium hard was just so much more clear. The hard medium, sorry, was so much more clear. But now, obviously, you know, just say Max really enjoys the softs. There's a bit more of an advantage for him this game. There's a bit more chance for him to make something work with his preferred driving style, his preferred strategy.
You're absolutely right about that. It's definitely a lot better than the cookie cutter hard to mediums from F1 22. If you're feeling really bold, you go mediums to hard, but you'd never see the soft tyres in race trim. So it's great to see that we've got all 3 tyres on circuit with a range of different strategies, and they're all working in varying outcomes. Wilson Hall, fair play to him. He's in the top 5 at the minute, ahead of Louis Welch. I don't know if it's going to be for much longer, but he's had a decent showing in this Grand Prix, and it's definitely this race has seemingly been a proving ground for some of these guys who are less proven than the likes of Duncan Hoffman and Max Wiesel, who are leading this race. Sergio Sabrino is going to get the move on Sven Schumacher, and that is now a podium position for Sabrino. He's done well by pitting just a lap earlier than the likes of Louis Welch and Flores Vise, because the undercut has worked an absolute treat for him. He's not been caught up in traffic, and Louis Welch has paid the price for it. He's ahead now. Wilson Hall into that top 5. He's got to track down Sven Schumacher as Skither tries to get the move on Wilson Hall. It's the second time they've been fighting this race. They come to blows with one another, heading in towards the corner, and oh dear, coming back onto the track. Skither just gives a bump to Wilson Hall there, and seemingly there's not much bad blood. I think he's actually let him through, which is very respectable from Skither. At least I'm going to assume that he's just let him on through, but he's going to look up the inside in towards turn number 20, so he's taking no prisoners in this Grand Prix, and Wilson Hall been let back through immediately to have that one stolen underneath his nose, and just to rub it in his face, Skither with the DRS, he's going to be able to secure that P6.
Yeah, and Bogdan, he's looking to get a move down on Andres Lopez as well, and obviously his tyres are a bit more newer than Wilson Hall, so he could be looking himself for a pretty decent position in the race. He's currently sitting ninth. He's got people ahead of him on penalties. He could be looking for a P7, which would be really nice. I believe he started down in P14, P15, so that would work out well. Obviously, Floris had that 5-second penalty that he had to serve in the pits, along with pitting in traffic. He's really not made that work at all. He's now sitting in 10th. He's 17 seconds back off. You know, remember he was, I think, about 3 seconds from Max before the pit stop. He's now 16 seconds from Max, so this has really not worked out for him at all, and yeah, he's going to be very angry with himself for the way this has worked out. And now we have Bogdan Moldovan gaining on Andres Lopez. Can he get himself ahead of, well, I suppose we could say the Verstappen car down towards turn 12? He's got the inside, I know he sits back, so he wants that DRS advantage still, so I think we saw Bogdan do that earlier, just not overtaking, just wants to sit behind and use that DRS just to pull him along, given that slight advantage. As we look further up, we've got Louis Welch on the back of Sven Schumacher looking to put himself into P4. With Skither also just sitting right behind. Obviously, he's on the medium, so could be a little bit slower compared to Louis, Sergio and Max. So, you know, we're still going to look for possibly a P5, but, you know, it's not going to be the advantage he would have had if he pitted onto the softs, but that could also be due to tyre allocation. If he went for a harder set of tyres, he might not have had any softs to use that were brand new for his pit stop. As we head up now towards turn 1, Louis right on the back of Sven. He has the inside line, he brakes later up the inside, pops himself up into the top 4. Obviously with that penalty he needs to get ahead of Sven by 3 seconds, which I think is quite possible with these tyres, but the question is, when do the soft tyres start to lose their advantage to come through? And look at Sven basically pushing Louis Welch through this section as he backs off a little bit now as they come through the end of this first sector.
Yeah, Louis Welch, he's only got 4 laps of wear on the soft compound tyres compared to 10 laps on Sven Schumacher's medium, so I definitely think Louis Welch is going to have the pace to stay ahead of Sven Schumacher. Whether or not he gets up to the rear of Sergio Sobrino and builds that 3-second gap to possibly get on the podium, I'm not too sure. I don't think it's going to work out quite that way for him. We'll look to the top of the order though, because Max Wiesel now within a second of Duncan Hoffman, just teetering around that 1 second window as Mirko Soriano gets by on Floris Vyers. Both these guys have pitted an extra time in this race. Actually, no, they've only pitted once. Mirko Soriano just pitted 2 laps ago. Sorry, I was completely blanked on that. As Skither gets by on Sven Schumacher, who's once again struggling for traction on these mediums. They are beginning to die out. I'm wondering if he is actually going to be able to comfortably get to the end of this race. We saw most drivers do, what, about 15-16 laps on a set of the medium, so he should be okay to get to the end of this race. However, it's definitely going to be touch and go. That's where he's going to be able to hold onto the cars. Now off the exit of the final corner, here comes Skither opening up the DRS on the back of Louis Welch, closing in towards turn 1. You can see the blinking red lights on the back of Louis Welch's car, and he gets on by without any issue whatsoever.
Yeah, and with the battle for the top spot now, I think Max will probably stick behind until around lap 27-28. I think, actually, with how long the straight is actually here, he could wait till lap 28, then pass Duncan Hoffman down into turn 12. Because I suppose if he passed 27 on lap 28, Duncan could get back through. So yeah, Max will probably go on the last lap. I wouldn't see him going for it now. There'd be no point, because I don't think he's that confident to stretch a second in that final sector to Duncan. So yeah, I think the best thing to do for him is stick behind, unless obviously Duncan makes a giant mistake, or, you know, just all of a sudden his tyres drop off completely. Sergio, he's looking to gain a little bit on the back of Max and Duncan, but it won't be enough for him to get himself in position as we head down to turn 12. And I think Max sticking behind, yes he does there, and just going for a bit of a dummy, moving all around, weaving into the braking zone, and he just sticks behind Duncan, probably just trying to put Duncan under a bit of pressure and trying to get him to make a mistake as we head through now this final set through turns 15 and 16. And you can see that obviously Max having a bit more a bit more grip on the tyres, but also sticking behind could give him a bit more time management. He hasn't got to worry about pushing the tyres to get ahead. He can just sit behind, pull himself along and save himself some tyre wear to the end. And Sergio, he's 5.4 seconds back, so he's having a pretty decent stint as well on the soft tyres. And together, he's now about a second ahead of Louis Welch. So yeah, this is working well for him. Louis sitting
Here comes Wiesel. Duncan Hoffman defending to the inside line. Wiesel's going to go to the inside, in towards the braking zone. Tyre marbles on both of their cars off the exit of turn number 1. Little bit of contact between the pair of them. Sorry to cut in there. Wiesel, I don't know if he wanted to go for that move. Duncan Hoffman moved back over, and then Wiesel out of nowhere just sent it up the inside line in towards the corner. Duncan Hoffman stays ahead in towards that first part of this, in towards the first sector. That's going to allow for Max Wiesel to get the DRS heading down in towards turn number 12. Duncan Hoffman's going to be feeling very vulnerable in this pink livery car in towards now turn number 11. There you go. What can Max Wiesel do? Will he go for this overtake on lap number 24 off the exit of turn number 11? Here he goes onto the tyre marbles, picking up a lot of debris on that left-hand side in towards turn number 12. They go easy as you like for Max Wiesel. Duncan Hoffman with hardly any defence whatsoever, and Wiesel up into P1.
Yeah, I found that quite an odd one to tell what it seemed like. Max went for it, backed off, then because obviously Duncan thought he was going to send it, he slowed down, and then I thought, well, I might as well just go for it now. You know, there's no point sitting behind for much longer. They'll lose time to Sergio. So yeah, that was a pretty, I think, miscommunication between the both of them. But obviously on track, you're not going to communicate with each other too much. You're just going to try and work out what's going on. But Max hits ahead. I didn't expect him to go for it. I thought he would have stayed behind because surely Duncan could just repass him with this DRS advantage as they come through the last couple of corners. As the gap's about 4/10 into the final corner, the gap will be sitting at 4/10, so it's pretty stable between the twos now. Duncan has the DRS. He's got a bit more battery to use. Well, actually, no, he's got a little bit less battery, sorry, to use compared to Max. If you head up to turn 1, will Duncan go for an overtake? No, he won't. He'll sit right behind into turn 1. That's Skidder again ahead of Sergio Sobrino's put himself up into the podium place now. I was on the 7-lap-old mediums compared to the 8-lap-old softs. It seems a bit of an advantage there for Skidder, and I think Sergio might have made a mistake because he's now right under pressure from Louis Welch.
Yeah, Louis Welch has found himself in this fight as Andres Lopez into the pit lane retires from this race. It seems like Sergio Sobrino doing his best to stay to the rear of Skidder. We've only got 11 runners left in this Grand Prix on lap number 25 of 28, so it's certainly been a slugfest for a lot of these guys. Shout out to Yanni Turpkov for still trucking on in P11. He spent most of this race just driving along by himself, but he is still trooping on, so fair play to him in this Grand Prix. We'll see what happens off the exit of turn number 11. Will Louis Welch go for this move on Sobrino, or will the DRS help out the Max Verstappen liveried car in front? Is now in towards the braking zone. There you go. No moves being made. Sergio Sobrino going to bide his time, stay within the DRS range of Skidder, maybe try and recharge that battery.
Yeah, as you come through now, and Sergio sitting right behind the back of Skidder. Maybe he could make it work if he could just keep within this DRS, but you can see now it seems, Skidder's gone really deep down at turn 16. That's going to lose him some time, but yet Sergio, if he can just keep within this 1 second, it could possibly work well for him near the end of the race if he could just keep within and just use that advantage down the back straight, because even if your tyres are slower, if you can be within that 1 second and have that DRS down to turn 12, that's going to get you through. But actually it doesn't matter because he's got a 3-second time penalty, so now this is practically secured this for Skidder as he head out the final corner. Sergio's now under some real pressure. He's got to keep himself ahead of Louis because obviously these two have got penalties. It'll just be on count back between the two. And obviously Sven, he's 6 seconds behind, so I don't think they have to worry too much about him. So yeah, at the moment, the battle really for Sergio is just to keep himself ahead of Louis. He's also gaining a pretty decent chunk as well as they come through this first set to Sergio, sticking within 3/10 of Skidder. But you know, at this point, unless he can dunk 3 seconds on him in the last 2 laps, it means absolutely nothing if he gets through.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely a struggle for Sobrino, and I don't think it helps that Skidder is pitted a lot later than everyone else from his set of the hard compound of tyres onto the mediums. And it seems to be bearing fruit for him. He might have been in a similar position to this if he was on a set of the softs. He might have been on the back of Duncan Hoffman. However, at this point, I think the softs really are starting to wear out with just 2.5 laps to go in this race. I think that's evident by the fact that Duncan Hoffman still within the fight for the win of this Grand Prix. Is only 5/10 of a second off the back of Max Wiesel, and every lap that goes on, the advantage for Duncan Hoffman is going to grow. Same goes for Skidder, same goes for Sven Schumacher, although 14 laps on his set of the mediums is definitely not going to be ideal for him. But yeah, this race still not over as they come up towards 2 laps to go.
Yeah, and I think Max thought, obviously when he passed on, he must have thought he had a bit more of an advantage than he has, because at the moment they both use lots of battery. Max has got 10%, Duncan's got 21%, so Duncan has got that slight advantage. And as we head up towards turn 1 and lap 27, the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. And at the moment, I think any of these two could take the win. I think it's looking likely to be Max, but with his pace Duncan's got down the straights with the DRS, it could also be him as well, as long as he can get through into turn 12. There's not really many overtaking places in that final sector for Max to try and get himself back through. So if Duncan can make it work down to turn 12, I think he's pretty much secured it.
Absolutely, as this race continues on with just almost 1.5 laps to go in this one. It's certainly been an up and down race, and we've seen a lot of different strategies been deployed here in the United States. So I think it's been a very interesting race, to say the least. But Duncan Hoffland, Nathan, surely he's got to get a move on at this point. He's now well within that DRS range of Max Wiesel in front of him. Is he going to go for it this lap by, or is he going to try and wait for the very last attempt? We'll see what he does now, heading in towards turn number 12 for the penultimate time. You can see the blinking red lights on Max Wiesel's car, but despite that, he doesn't go for the move. He's going to stay behind and try and go for it on the last lap.
Yeah, well, he gained about 5 tenths there on Max. He didn't use any ERS, neither did Max, but still, I think if you can keep that gap in towards turn 11 again, this is pretty much going to be Duncan's race, I think. You know, he's sitting 4 tenths back. He'll easily gain 4 tenths without the use of battery. Then he's got the battery as well to use to just give him a bit more, a bit more pace in that back straight. Yeah, I think Max might have told this wrongly. I think he should have just stayed behind with this DRS. But then again, obviously, Skidder is also starting to gain. We've got 1 lap left now, so it doesn't matter that Skidder's gaining. But, you know, if it was a few more laps, Skidder could have got himself into the equation. But now we head down into turn 1. Does Duncan go for it this early? I don't think he would. Surely he doesn't. No, he doesn't. So he wants to use that DRS down at turn 11 to get himself ahead.
Yeah, at the minute, it is a battle between these two for the lead. The Connor Sport livery donned Max Wiesel, and then the pink and purple Duncan Hoffland. Who is going to come out on top in this one? We'll find out in just a minute's time, as now Max Wiesel only 2 tenths ahead of Duncan Hoffland in the first sector. Hoffland is going to have the benefit of the DRS, and he's also got so much more battery than Max Wiesel. He's deploying it down towards turn 11 to get the best run in through here as possible. Off the exit, it is all about what he can do now, as here he is deploying the ERS, opening up the rear wing to deploy the DRS, now heading in towards turn number 12. Max Wiesel defending towards the inside line, but he has no defense whatsoever. Duncan Hoffland's going to soar on by and into the lead on the final lap of the race. It has been a masterful race from him, the tactical genius that Duncan Hoffland is. Max Wiesel did all he can. He led for so long in this Grand Prix, but it is going to be Duncan Hoffland through the final few corners, and I don't think Max Wiesel is going to have an opportunity to win.
No, as Duncan Hoffland there comes through turn 17 and 18, there's nothing Max can do. Louis Welch there gets another 3-second time out for multiple warnings, but now Duncan Hoffland into turn 19. Then he comes into the final corner. As long as he doesn't get a penalty, he's won it. Into the final corner. Duncan Hoffland, after taking those mediums for 15 laps, can come home to win the USA Grand Prix with Max Wiesel in second. And Skidder, after having a tremendous race finish, he doesn't. He spun on the exit and he's got damage. And he gets, that's close, but he got the penalty from Sergio. But yeah, I don't think he expected to hit the wall.
11 lap old mediums, I wouldn't have worn out that much. I think he just got a bit too excited. You can see his front wing completely shattered on the side of the track there. That was a heart in mouth moment there. I thought he'd bottled the podium, but he's managed to hold on due to the fact that Sergio Sobrino and Louis Welch both had penalties in this one. Sobrino does hang on for P4. Sven Schumacher in 5th. Soriano coming from last place, 18th place, all the way up to 6th. And then Bogdan Moldovan in 7th. Louis Welch with 8 seconds of penalties to his name drops down to 8th. Wilson Hall 9th. Flores Vyers in 10th. Then Jane Turpkov, fair play to him. We'll spectate him as he crosses the line. He is going to be the final finisher in this race after having a collision right at the beginning of the race. He kept on going for all 28 laps, and he got respect him for that.
Yeah, great job. And I think, to be fair, I'm just tempted on saying driver of the day to Jarno just for saying out. You know, many people retired, but because to be fair, I know I would have done for a fact. You know, he just kept on me just circling round and round in last place. So yeah, fair play to them. But I think, you know, driver of the day just for the commitment, Tripkov. But I think, you know, in genuine terms of pace and just strategy, I think Duncan Hoffland gets it easily. 7th to 1st, and he made that work perfectly on the final lap.
Yeah, he the strategy really did play into his hands, and I think he was bold enough to do something that not many other people were willing to do, and that was start on a set of the soft compound tyres and take them as long as possible. And it worked out. Duncan Hoffland takes victory in this race ahead of Max Wiesel. And it was a very nice fought battle between the pair of them. Of course, two drivers coming from the PlayStation platform, now on the PC. And it was a very strong showing. Here's your classification then for this social race. Duncan Hoffland wins this race ahead of Max Wiesel in second. Rounding out the podium is Skizzer. Then Sergio Sobrino fourth. And Sven Schumacher comes home from P11 into fifth. From 18th on the grid, Mirko Soriano finishes in at 6th, and Bogdan Moldovan gains 6 places to go into 7th. Louis Welch with his penalties, 11 seconds total, drops down to 8th. Wilson Hall in 9th, and then running out the top 10 is Floris Vyers. And the last finisher in this race, Jano Turpkov. And the DNFs are as follows, and there's quite a few of them: Andres Lopez, Legend Rosenberg, Ryan Jacobs, Leo Lund, Aljat, Ian Van Unen, Benny Fabos, and Bent Jabo-Konyi, who didn't even complete the first lap. But Nathan, that brings us to the end of this one. I'm not full screen on the Discord for some reason. That's because we've got Sven Schumacher in the commentary box.
Hello.
Hello. I didn't know we were doing interviews tonight. Sorry. I'll bring us over to the interviews, Keen. And Nathan, why don't you talk to Sven here?
Hello, Sven. Welcome in. So that race, how did the strategy go? Because obviously a lot of people tried different things. Do you think it worked out well for you, or do you think you could have done something a bit better?
I think the strategy was perfect for me. I started P11 with a not too bad quali lap for me. And I saw Otis doing it yesterday, so I just thought, why not give it a try? And
Yeah.
it worked out for me. I gained 6 positions. So yeah.
And obviously using the multiplayer car, was there actually much of a difference compared to the the real life cars, or was it just a different livery for you?
Apart from the camera settings, it's the same.
Yeah, which is good. So obviously trying to make something the best out of the worst situation. Do you think it's too much of an issue often to use these multiplayer cars for the near future, or do you think it's something that we should just pause league racing for now?
No. We can run these cars. Like I already said, it's not much of a difference, and people can be creative with the livery. So I think it's a good in between the next start of league racing when the multiplayer cars are finally fixed.
And obviously, coming out of this race, is there any? Obviously, I don't think I spoke to you this game. I think we spoke to you at the end of the last game, but. For you, has there been much of an improvement in pace? Do you think? Do you prefer this game compared to last game with the handling and the traction?
For now, I have no idea because I've only practiced at one track, and this was my worst actually last year's game. But pace seems there, to be honest, compared to the top guys.
Yeah.
But definitely practiced a lot for this one, so we will see in the future.
Yeah. Before we go, Dan, have you got anything to say to Sven?
No questions from me, but really well done in this race. It was good to see you getting your balls out and having a scrap with all the drivers. So yeah, really well done.
Can I give a shout out real quick?
You want to give a shout out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Figo, Romee, and Puck. Those are my friends who supported me during the run at my league racing career. So yeah, big shout out to them.
Shout out to the pair of them. I think I saw Rome talking in the chat at some point, giving you support.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to them.
Yep. All right, thanks, boys.
All right, thank you for joining us, Sven. Really well done. Hope to see you do well come PSGL time.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, that's nice. We don't very often see people giving shout outs. So is that something nice to a nice element to add to the end of the stream?
Yeah. I think it was very nice indeed. I'll bring us back over to the oh, that's the game scene. Sorry, I'm a bit rusty with all of this, and I need to just disconnect there so we can get our faces back in the camera. But yeah, fun race here in Austin.
It was. I really enjoyed it. To be fair, I'm surprised how quickly I got to grips with these multiplayer cars, and I'm sorry if you can hear the barking in the background. Yeah, I thought it would have been a lot more difficult than it was. Qualifying was difficult, but the race, once you kind of figure out who's where, it's kind of easy just to try and correspond. Someone who's at the top with one livery and then someone who's at the bottom with the same livery. You can kind of, try and link it together. So, yeah, it's not much of an issue. And as Sven said, obviously it's nice to see different liveries. Hopefully, if we do race with these cars again, we have to have everyone with different liveries, or maybe liveries that correspond to the IRL teams, just so we don't get too mixed up. Because I think it could create more and more issues in the future, especially obviously with different drivers racing in different races.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be, if we do end up racing with these multiplayer cars, then I think there is going to be some regulation, especially for like the top 2, 3, 4 tiers. You know, they're going to have the correct livery on that correspond to their car, and I think it all gets sorted out. Hopefully, a patch comes very soon that fixes the tyre issues, because we really can't run a competitive event when there is such a clear advantage for some other drivers than others. And I think it is important to note that isn't a it's not a defining factor of people's skill. Don't go hating on people that are driving the Red Bulls and the AlphaTauris, because all of these guys at the top of their games. I'm talking about the PC Tier 1 scene, of course. They're going to have that advantage, yes, but it is at that level, I think, so unnoticeable. It's not going to display people's talents at all, so please, don't send anything over to them.
Yeah, of course. That's something we don't hate. I've seen a lot of it recently since the new games come out, so yeah. Be nice if you didn't hate as much. And obviously, also from last night, try not to cause any more issues online between, obviously, what happened with Otis with the penalty. I think it's one of them rules of rules. It's unfair. Obviously, Otis's point of view to many of his fans, but I think, it's one of those. And Otis obviously didn't take it to heart too much. He's kind of calmed down, let it all happen. So yeah, try not to cause too much hate and stirring any issues up online on Twitter mainly.
Yeah, I think it's a relatively stress-free race this evening, so hopefully we don't have to worry about any fans shouting at each other on Twitter. It should all be okay. But I think, Nathan, that brings us to the end of the social race. It was definitely a very fun one this evening. I hit something on my keyboard, and I don't think I changed the scene or anything. I think I'm okay here, but it was a very fun one today.
It was, and thanks, Dan, for having me alongside with you tonight. It was a great one. Obviously, we was commentating in PSGL series, but I think apart from that, we haven't done much work together at all, have we? So, yeah, it's great to be back with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to potentially commentate with you in the future. But everyone, I think that brings us to the end of this stream. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Hopefully we get some news on a potential patch coming out. But for the time being, if you want to follow PSGL on our social, it'll be at PremierSimGL on Twitter and Instagram, and make sure, of course, you're subscribing and liking subscribing to the PSGL YouTube channel and liking this stream. And I think one of the key things, join our Discord server. The link will be in the description. You'll get all the news firsthand as to when we get going for season 34 once the patch actually drops. But from me and Nathan, thank you everyone very much for tuning in tonight, and we will see you very soon. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my